You've always felt there's like something not quite there in life, like there's something missing. And then
Yes.
you get a rabbit, and then you're like, wait, this was it. This was always it.
Where will humans be in 10 years? The same we are now. Like the problems are the same. I'm just so tired of like the AI discourse. It just seems like these people have not read any history. We had the same exact complaints about books.
I'm really hoping that AI injects some creativity into the cultural sphere because like we're stagnating so badly.
Americans have more and more free time, but what we're mostly doing with that is streaming alone.
The millennials were messed up, but the younger kids, they are not even on Instagram. For them, Instagram is like old people with plastic surgery doing weird shit for money. I think the kids will actually get over social media. Do you guys know each other? Like there are a lot of like new connections here, right? Oh my God.
I know Erica.
Exciting.
I know Musa.
If I had all the money in the world, I would just like fly you guys into a hotel in Vegas or something and feed you a lot of shrimp and cocktails, and there would be a pool. This is like...
Anna, we have money. We can just fly to Vegas and do this with you. You can just invite us.
That's true, but the friction is bigger if you have to pay for yourself. And like, I want to get so rich, I can just like send a plane for you guys. This is like the poor man's version. This is the pre-seed founders version of the 3-day retreat in a 5+1-star hotel that I rent out somehow in the future. A future me will feel like that's a great way to spend my funds. Okay, so Musa, is he coming? What's going on? Oh, he's here.
Wait, Anna, I have a question.
Tell me.
I actually don't know. Is this a podcast or is this one of the symposiums?
So this is my
Or are those the same thing now? Have you
experiment.
merged?
I've never done this before. I had a dream where I was like, this is the thing that needs to be done. Jenna, you can't laugh. Just because you're a therapist, you're not allowed to have like a scientific idea about this.
What are you reading into my lap? I just thought that was cool. I was not analyzing your dream.
Just like in her childhood. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. This is me joking here. So I thought, because like the Hope Axis is all about like talking with some of the most productive, amazing people that I know about what makes them hopeful. And it's like very much like zooming in on these various, very different careers. And I thought, what if we dumped all these people together at the end of the year? Because 2025 was both, at least for me, a super hopeful year when a lot of really good things happened, and a massively fucked up shit show where every day I was like, this cannot be happening. I'm sure the Onion editorial team has taken over Twitter and CNN, and this is a joke. And like part of me is like in Dallas when Bobby wakes up and it turns out he wasn't murdered, he was just dreaming. Maybe we'll wake up from 2025 and it's going to be all just a joke. And somebody will be like, ha ha ha, you thought that. So I'm like very like, on the fence. And from Interact, I know that the best conversations come when the host is on the fence about something. Oh, hi, Musa. Okay. Well, we love this photo. You look very concerned. Obviously. And by the way, I'm going to record around like 45, 50 minutes. And I know that Santiago has to leave at 7. So we are respecting that. I just like blocked out more time for like people who can't start their videos. All right, I'm just joking. We see the struggle. We understand that this struggle is such a great summary of this past year. It's like we're almost there. And then it's not. It's the Xenos paradox of the year. So I was just thinking of going through some of the bigger events. And I mean, some of you here actually like write about this very actively, like Noah, Santiago, you are writing and editing about this, and you all already have some kind of like processing mechanism for it. The other ones here, we're just like suffering through along with everybody else and trying to do a good job and look after the people we love, whilst the world is trying to kill us very actively. So, I just thought, let's go through all the events. Let's, like look at favorite ideas, books, movies, because I feel like what stands out in today's very kind of saturated media and cultural environment is very telling. Like there's a reason why this or that resonated or this didn't resonate. So this is my idea. And like, just jump in. There are no rules. I'm going to like introduce you guys at the beginning and you can correct me because I am likely to mess these things up. Also, this is not live. So if you accidentally share like your PIN code or a story about your mom that would make her mad. We have an editor who can remove this. You have to let me know. I won't know, okay? So you have to let me email me, text me after, like, FYI. That was just for you guys.
But making your mom mad means that it's a good podcast, Anna.
Thank you. That's going to be my next podcast after the Hope Axis. After I spoke with all the 50 people in the world who have hope, I will kind of pivot to make your mother mad. And Musa is here. Hi. It's super elegant, of course. Like this is how I should have arrived, in a blazer. So these are the ground rules. Does this sound okay? Cool. So I'm going to do this interact thing when I go around the room and how I see you guys, like the general, like, order of arrival. Or I don't know how Zoom places you, like whatever fits their spying network the best. So Natasha Joukovsky, we're starting with you. I have background information about the scarf. Beautiful. Thank you to your parents for gifting the scarf. Natasha is a management consultant whose real job is being one of the best novelists alive in America. Her book, Portrait of a Mirror, is one of my favorite neo-Austen books. She has hosted multiple Interact salons, both about the book and about other topics, such as why Middlemarch is one of the best books on economics. She has an absolutely not useless Substack, despite the title, where she, for instance, uses mathematical modeling to understand Girard and which Jane Austen male character is the most fuckable. And she actually finds out. So I really recommend reading and following her. And she has a new book called Medium Rare coming out in March in America. It will be about mythology, Washington, D.C. lobbyists, basketball, betting, and fandom. And somehow it works. Like, maybe it sounds weird, but it's like amazing. And everybody has to read it. And thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. What an introduction. Wow.
Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Great fried eggs as well. Like, few people will mention in your CV the real good stuff.
That is the first time I've gotten a shout out for my cooking skills ever.
Sari Azut, welcome. So happy to see you. One of the most exciting Hope Axis episodes where you called it, I think, from the ski slopes in Colorado, from like some completely non-professional environment. And I was so blessed that, oh my God, she comes on my podcast. What an amazing thing. We did like a founder therapy on the call. Sari is the founder and CEO of Sublime, which is kind of a model of the creative mind in a digital form, where you can both collaborate and just like collect the things that inspire you in the world. And receiving an email from Sari with the updates is always incredibly hope-inducing. So I recommend signing up. And I know that you have a billion new projects in the making as well, and we will talk about that. Thank you so much for being here and calling him.
Thank you for having me.
My next victim is going to be Gena. Does Gena need an introduction? I feel like we're all like
If anyone here needs an introduction, then I need it.
Okay, Gena figured out why intellectual humility is bullshit, why the builders need to be built. I think all ambitious people have to follow you and find out why Let the River Run is the most ambitious song in the world, and why ambitious people just have a weird brain. And as a therapist yourself, you at some point arrived at the conclusion that some of the traditional therapy methods don't work on crazy people who want to build things, whether that's art or companies, because you don't want to calm down. You don't want to have a more balanced life. You don't want to blame your mother for your round. And so kind of all the traditional therapeutic methods are like, I don't know what to say. And there comes the psychology of ambition. And you're writing a book now. You've written a book?
I am editing a book.
Okay.
I have drafted. I'm writing a book. It is very much in progress.
Okay. So at some point there will be a Gena book. Let's put it this way, okay? It's in some gestation process. Never ask an author how the book is going until they have sent you the galley or you're very close. So I just built up on our friendship here. Did I miss anything?
I am not the therapist from Billions. No,
You're not a therapist?
Thank you for asking. I watched exactly one episode of Billions because everybody kept making this analogy. And I had such a viscerally negative reaction that I've never watched any further episodes. So it's safe to say I'm not that therapist.
I never thought of you that way. Interesting.
No, it's okay. I'm glad you asked so that I could set the record straight.
But there is a famous founder coach who calls herself Wendy from Billions in her bio on Twitter.
Julie Garner, I believe. I don't know if she's the only one, but I know she does and has been.
Well, look, there is a big market. There is a place for that kind of expertise.
Indeed. Yes.
Yours is
there's demand aplenty. Yes. The only other little bit that I'll clarify is that I don't think y'all are the crazy ones. I think y'all are the sane ones.
Okay.
With all of the highs and the lows.
We remain the children. In some sense, retaining that kind of freshness and innocence. I love that. And you're also Matt Bateman's lawful wife.
I am Matt Bateman's wife.
Is an amazing person on Pier and on Substack. And if you have a child and you want that child to flourish, Matt is definitely a great person.
Yeah. Yes, follow Matt. Yes, for all of those purposes, and then I can be Matt's wife and perfectly happy.
And he is, it's like
under that
crossover here.
Yeah. Happily known under either of those titles.
Yeah. And Erica Robles Anderson calling in from your den. I love that, where the sausage is made.
which was the office of a psychoanalyst. So there's a kind of crossover point here between therapy and writing.
It's very interesting. I did not know that. Erica is a professor at NYU. Her field is you studied engineering, but your field now is history, and she's writing a 3-volume mega book on mega churches. I think when you're writing about something very big, the book also has to be big. Like there has to be some kind of a proportionality there. And Erica and I frequently collaborate every week almost, and I did a lot about American culture, American religiosity, where the hell all this is going, and how to do community better, how to go back to how to retain the blessings of progress, but go back to the fundamentals of culture building, scene building, economy building, and how to make people feel more involved. Is that a good summary? Actually,
fantastic.
These books, you're writing a lot of books, but I'm just like mentioning the trilogy.
Yeah, I mean, I think all I would add is that really, like, if you're interested in collective life, and how that kind of meaning can be shaped anew in different forms, then that's always a conversation I'm so excited to be part of. Yeah.
And you have a Substack as well, American Collectivism.
American collectivity. Yeah. So there are no rugged individuals, alas, everybody needs people.
To sign up.
Can we share our Substack links? Well, I don't know if
go ahead.
will actually see the chat. The recording, but I would love to collect them all.
And Santiago Ramos calling in from DC, if I'm not mistaken. Are you? You're in New York.
Right.
You guys have to come to New York. Everybody has to be based here. Santiago is co-founder of Wisdom of Crowds, and
no,
oh,
I can't.
I can't. Take the credit.
Shadi Hamid and Damir Marusic are the founders of Wisdom of Crowds. I was, until yesterday, in fact, executive editor. Now I'm editor at large, and now I'm an editor at Plow Quarterly.
Wow! Congratulations.
Thank you.
Cool.
And I also have to say, for business reasons, I'm a contributor at Commonweal, so that my editor Matt doesn't get mad.
Yeah.
Very proud. I love Commonweal.
We're not going to make moms mad, but we might make the editors mad. Oh, congratulations on Plow. I love them. Absolutely. And Wisdom of Crowds is amazing. You guys are doing great events in DC, very good cultural analysis. A lot of great people right there, including Tara Isabella Burton, who's a good friend of ours. And it's generally another great way of like rethinking faith and culture in America in a way that is very, I find it very empowering.
Yes, thank you. Those very kind words. And we've had, I think Musa was on our podcast a few months ago,
really?
6 months ago. Yes.
Then you introduce Musa. Let's do that.
Musa is a great sociologist, and he's actually had, Musa has an amazing backstory. I think at one point he was training to be a priest. He was a philosopher. He's influenced by Kierkegaard. And at some point he made a left turn towards sociology, and he is famous for this book titled We Have Never Been Woke. I did that with no prep, Musa. So
did he miss anything?
probably.
No, I mean, yeah. So I'm no, that's great. I'm a professor of communication and journalism right now at Stony Brook University in Long Island, and my next book is called Those People. It's coming out, God willing, and peace, in late 2026 with Princeton University Press.
So not a sociology professor. That was totally wrong.
Well, no, my PhD is in sociology. I'm a
Okay.
sociologist by training, but I'm just not hired in a sociology department. Yeah.
I mean, I love Musa's work, and the Substack is also fantastic. I think in the Substack you give a little bit of a teaser, a taster of all the things that are in the book, at least that I know of. It's a very innovative and non-super left way of applying the best of French sociology on American life. And it's a very interesting, we did a couple of salons with authors on Interintellect during the past year. One was with Nadia Asperuhova, who wrote about anti-memetics, and the other was Atossa Abrahamian, who wrote The Hidden Globe. And in both conversations you came up, first of all, both conversations are deeply inspired by China Miéville's The City and the City, where two cities basically live in the same space, but they are trained not to see each other. And in both books, this duality comes up. And actually, I always bring up Musa's book because that's framing New York City this way, where you have a kind of elite who gets the food delivered, and then you have the invisible people, quote unquote, who deliver the food or the laundry, or who drive the Uber. And that American life also has this brutal duality where two societies live together with actually quite little overlap and knowledge of each other. And they both, in a very Aldous Huxley way, kind of feel like it's better if they don't even think about the other, which of course is completely unsustainable, as your work and research show. Like at some point, some kind of organizing narrative has to come forward. And the wrong narrative in Musa's work is symbolic social justice, symbolic capitalism system, where there's a fake solution to the problem, which is that in some weird way, the American elites become way more left than the working class in a really weird kind of twisted way. And in a way that doesn't even represent the needs and real struggles of the people that they know very little about. And I think it's also hilarious. I think read Musa because there's a lot of absurd comedy in there in like a Gogol-esque way, which is very surprising.
Yeah, people have remarked that the book is funny, and I didn't write it to be funny, but I guess, as you said, like there's a certain kind of absurdity that comes through and makes people laugh sometimes. I mean, Dostoevsky is this way too, where like the books are kind of dark and very serious, but also very funny at times, and yeah.
I think if it gets sufficiently bad, you have to kind of laugh at it. And I think you identify it as sufficiently bad. Other people are like, it's not so bad. And Musa is like, no, it's time to laugh. It's like it got to that point. And someone asked me, because you don't have the video on, that's why you ended up as my last victim here. Hi, Noah.
Hi.
The most important thing you need to know about Noah is he's a father to bunnies everywhere. He's like the patron saint. And his main advice about American economy and the American family is to get a bunny. Am I correct about this?
Well, yes. It's the big thing you're missing is rabbit.
Oh,
You've always felt there's like something not quite there in life, like there's something missing.
yes.
And then you get a rabbit, and then you're like, wait, this was it. This was always it.
How did the
I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here to bring that knowledge to you. I'm just giving you the answer to life. I'm giving it away. I'm not even charging for it. I ask nothing in return. I have reached enlightenment, and I'm descending from the mountain to just tell everybody else, because that's my duty now.
we are so grateful. You are the prophet of rabbits. Actually, there's a Hungarian saint, Saint Margaret, after whom the Margaret Island and then Margaret Bridge are both named, who is Nyulak Margitja, the Margaret of the rabbits. And rabbits liking her and following her around were thought to show her goodness, and was the sign like wherever she would go, she was a nun, she would be followed by rabbits.
I support, strong support.
Strong support. Strong support for strong body energy saints. Noah used to be a writer at Bloomberg. I think a lot of people knew you first from there, and now has his own gigantic, super popular, oversubscribed blog, No Opinion.
Massively oversubscribed.
Massively
Please stop subscribing.
oversubscribed.
Please stop giving me money.
Correctly subscribe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Gena. Thank you for correcting the
every
record.
10th subscriber he'll be
Excellent book. Now.
Noah is still used, I think, as a business case for Substack as like unattainable goals when they like convert writers. They're like, look at Noah. Yeah, but like Noah was like the second writer on Substack. And like, anyway, congratulations.
I was not the second writer ever. I was not even in the first like 2 years of Substack, honestly. Like, anyway.
You wait.
This is all revisionist history. I don't know.
I will say, I've been a big fan of Noah's work for a while. We're internet friends. I think this is the first time that we've actually been in a conversation together. Am I wrong about that?
I do think you're wrong about that. I think this is the second time. At least you just look familiar, like I've talked to you a bunch before, but then we may have met. It may have been in person that we met. And I don't remember where it was, like one of these conferences or something, because I haven't seen, yeah, I know what you like look and sound like. Maybe I've just seen a bunch of videos of you, but I don't think that's true. Anyway, we'll just assume this is our first time.
Well, this is where it goes from like parasocial to social relationships. So
yeah.
Congratulations. But revisionist history is a really, really good starting point, because I want to ask for your revision history, everybody, of 2025. Like, I'm just going to like stop talking, and this is free for grabs. Just share whatever was the main event of 2025 for you, whether that's personal or public, artistic, political, and we will start from there.
Of this year.
2025.
That we're in right now.
And then still.
Well, I mean, I'm going to need until like 2030 or 2031 to give you my take. Novelist can't respond to this overnight, over the duration of a podcast.
Well, I'll just dive into the elephant in the room. So one thing that obviously happened this year is that DJT was sworn back in as the president of the United States in early 2025. It certainly feels like he's been back in office for more than a year, but this is, kind of one of the things that sets over all of the other things right at this moment, at least in the public discourse. So I'll just throw that out there to get the ball rolling.
Well, this is actually a good point that I can riff on, because my new novel that comes out in March, Medium Rare, takes place in the first Trump administration. And while I was writing it in the Biden administration, I was thinking, I'm permanently putting him back where he belongs, which is as a minor character in fiction. And then the crazy future that I had sort of put to the side in deciding to set the novel in 2019 rather than in the near future, which was my original plan, actually came to pass anyway. And I was like, what? You're back? You don't belong here. Go back into fiction. Be entertaining where you can't hurt anybody.
I think I had the opposite kind of feeling, when I started doing the work on conservatives in 2005, it seemed like a career killer, this was the fringe of whatever. And then the kind of axes of the world tilted. And so like a quarter century into like the 21st century, I'm like, oh, I finally don't know what comes next, you know? And that's like this kind of weirdly exciting feeling of like, okay, like the trains have collided and now we have this strange world where like obviously Bill Ackman knows like this, like they've all been about to meet and
May
go
I
from
meet
parasocial to
you?
social.
Yeah.
Like it's been brewing for so long and finally it's like, you know, of course peak Hegseth is going to do exactly right. It's like it's all makes sense. And so in a way we have some real like indeterminacy on the table. Like there's a next season that hasn't been written at some level in where we go from here. That's kind of exciting.
Like when a TV
Yeah,
series
but
ends on a cliffhanger and you can tell that the writers have no idea. They just left all these things open so that later when they get more money, they can figure it out. Yeah, they are. When you watch an entire TV series, all the seasons, you know exactly where was the gap when the studio wanted to cancel them or something. Yeah, that's where we are.
I mean, I think the topic of DJT and the idea of hope, which I know Anna is very fond of, brings two things to mind, which is two different wars, one that seem maybe to be ending, one more than the other, and there's a lot of ambiguity as to whether those endings were good or not, were stable or not, and I'm curious how we're going to be evaluating those in a year from now. Gaza and Ukraine, of course.
It's really interesting in terms of like, I think a lot about shame that we feel for previous generations. You know, I'm Hungarian, different Hungarian generations feel ashamed of their forebears for various different things, whether that's the Holocaust or communism. You know, they ask themselves, like, how could this have happened? And of course, living in America now, I am aware that there are parts of American history that Americans are very, very uncomfortable about. Like, really, like that will like ruin a dinner party if you bring it up. And, you know, as I watched the news, especially in the second half of 2025, I kept thinking that it's like a grandchild has already been born who will look back and think, how could my grandmother like just watch this on TV and Twitter and not do anything about it, the same way as people are looking at like lynchings and segregation, you know, shooting at unarmed students in the 60s, and ask like, who was this person who did it? And I feel like now I know who these people are because we live with them, and that's both clarifying and edifying and also just fucking horrifying. Welcome, Jacob. We literally just started, like you stepped in at the right time. Diego Falkovich is another extremely amazing writer and also reinvented modern dating and just like solved the problem. So you're welcome. He's also a data guy. And I think that there's a reason why there's like dating and data and why having a little bit of a rationalist, look at the problem can solve issues that traditional methods cannot. Jacob, what was your favorite, biggest, most important event in 2025? Can be personal, can be political, artistic, up to you.
Well, to me, it's probably my personal. So I'm calling in from the office of an AI company. So I think last time we talked, I was writing my Substack on dating. And what I was doing today was trying to recruit Twitter friends to write samples to make LLMs funny. Because LLMs aren't really funny, and everybody who tried to make them funny kind of gave up, because if you just feed them joke, they just write vaguely joke-shaped things. And I don't know, like, see the current news, it still seems to me like, I don't know, the important thing that happened in my life this year was getting hired by an AI company and setting out as a writer. And I don't know, the most important thing that happened in the world is, I don't know, like maybe 10 years back, we'll look and say, oh, like Nano Banana Pro was the most important thing that happened in 2025, because literally AI images are going to be undetectable from now going forward. And we're all going to have to adjust to it with that reality. And I don't know, the Middle East will keep fighting, American politics will keep randomly swinging and not doing much. Russia will keep attacking random neighbors. And that stuff, kind of doesn't seem to be coming to any inflection point. Whereas, I don't know, AI, artificial minds, how people live with them, I don't know. That seems to be same with dating. I don't know. I think there's really not that much new happening in dating. Same problems, and people invent new traps for themselves, then new way to get out of them. The cycle repeats.
What do you guys think? Is AI the biggest thing that happened? By the way, when you say an AI company, is it like I went to university in Boston?
No, there are several AI companies, and they're all in the same neighborhood.
Okay. So it's not the AI company. It wasn't like, oh, humble brag, I'm working at an AI company.
No, there are a few. I'm working for one of the lesser known ones.
Okay.
But
just wanted to clarify because there are other universities in Boston,
I'm going to be at one of them in a week. I'll be at Boston University later this week. So one of the other Boston universities. But this point about how a lot of things that seem very novel or new are less new than they appear, less extraordinary than they appear. This is actually one of the big things I argue in a lot of my work too. So my book, this 100-year look at the political economy of the knowledge professions, and I showed like a lot of this stuff that we've been talking about, wokeness and the counter wokenings, anti-wokenings, this kind of thing is this is a pattern that repeats over time. It's driven by sets of factors that as a sociologist, you can analyze and kind of get leverage on like, well, why do these happen? Why do they repeat? Noah's done a lot of work on this as well. Anyway, so I think this point that there's like, in many cases, there's less novel here than people think. It's like an important thing to keep in mind, or to be alive to the possibility of, especially in moments like this.
I could not agree more with that. As someone who reinterprets myths, you can find not just things from the last 100 years, but so many like social media, trend du jour is often something that a philosopher pointed out 100, 200, something that Ovid pointed out 1,000 years ago. So I agree that there is less novelty. I was on a major crusade for a while about the word unprecedented and its use in the media. I think that this is the most overused word on network television surrounding elections and basically
remember
anything.
The pandemic emails?
Yes.
And
yes.
What you're doing, what was the wording? There was because at the beginning, everybody thought that they have to start every email in the pandemic with acknowledging these unprecedented times. Remember
that's
those
right.
emails?
I think that's when
hope this email finds you well, and then the memes where you're looking like this, and that's how your email finds you.
It actually started even before that. It's been ever since 2016, and the unprecedented the whole unprecedented push, as if there's anything novel about a wannabe fascist, megalomaniac narcissist. These are a dime a dozen through. If you go back long enough,
they don't know that this is not so rare.
I was thinking about this today with the there was the current fear, right, that we've just made these beautiful women with dating, right, that are not real. They're stored on the server somewhere, and the terror. And I was thinking, if I had to write today about where we're at on this precipice of the conjuncture of AI hitting whatever the right wing turn is to whatever. It's funny that there's this Epstein plot that's about trades between power worlds that have to do with young, less consenting people, right? And that is simultaneously the personhood construction that we're people are going to monetize. Think about it, and it's right, all of the old kinship structures, all of the old exchanges and questions of anthropology are going to be precisely what we deal with in the next 25 years and sort out.
I feel like I spent so much time before doing Sublime in venture capital and in consultancy, where thinking about the future of X and how the future looks so different from today was such a thing. Like I made so many decks in my career on the future of media. And now from my vantage point today, the future looks just like the present, like where will humans be in 10 years? The same we are now. Like the problems are the same. And I'm just so tired of like the AI discourse. It just seems like these people have not read any history when you're complaining about this technology. We had the same exact complaints about books, like
the printing press, coffee houses.
But when do I have to stop working? Is what I want to know, because a lot of very smart, very wealthy people are keep telling me that I won't have to have a job anymore.
Never. That's the thing.
No, but I really want to know, because I think Noah, don't you're sort of more optimistic on AI. When do we get to not have to work anymore?
Not have to work anymore? I mean, like right now, you could probably keep doing your same job, work less, but just outsource some of it to AI and spend the rest of the time petting a rabbit. Obviously, there's a lot of equilibrium factors, competitive equilibrium factors. Well, eventually you'll be asked to do more tasks because they know you can do those, with AI. Or you'll have to become self-employed and do some part-time arrangement where you make as much as you did before, but then you work half as much and blah, blah, blah. But then, I think that the first order thing is just like outsource a little bit of your work to AI and just work less of the day.
Are people actually doing that? I feel like I'm working more than ever because the expectations are higher. The expected output is higher. I feel like I spend more time writing now than before because I need to make sure it doesn't sound like an AI wrote it.
All right. I may be the biggest AI pessimist here, so I have to ask where where everybody's optimism is coming from when Anthropic is hiring humans to write Substack posts for $270,000 to $300,000. Maybe AI is changing things where you guys work, where I work. In both of the spheres, there's a lot of hype, a lot of smoke and mirrors. I'm not seeing a lot of real change from it. And like on the writing side, I'm just not interested. I'll use it as a Google search for research, but like that is the opposite of what I would want. Is
you couldn't get paid to write blog posts. You couldn't get paid $300K to write blog posts like 5 years ago.
But my question is, if AI is so good, why is Anthropic not letting AI write the blog posts?
They are. That's exactly what those people are doing. What do you think those people are doing at that job? They're mostly using AI. It's like a machine tool. It's like, oh, if you used a drill press to create this piece of metal, did the drill press really create it? Or am I a pessimist because there's still a human behind the drill press? No, you're an optimist because that means that you're so much more productive. Like, Anthropic is paying those people $300K because now with the help of AI, they can be so much more productive than they could have 5 years ago. So they're worth $300K now.
But why are they worth? Why couldn't you hire just any human being? Why those specific human beings get to have that job where they get paid so much money?
Because like working with AI takes skill. So for example, if you're looking at a machine tool, right, you have machinists who actually this kind of built the American middle class.
You have to justify the analogy though, because a machine is very different than writing an essay with a prompt on ChatGPT.
Right. But keep in mind that I do this. Like this is my job. Like I know how to do it.
I think we all do this.
Yeah, I mean,
we all
how do you use it? How do you use it to write? How much do you let it?
Really, really good, and I'm very curious how much you use it, how much you're prompting, how much is it part of the first mile, the last mile revision? Where is AI in your?
So AI doesn't. That's a good question. AI doesn't generate any of the text that I write. I've never copied text from AI into a blog post.
In fact, you had a funny essay about how you tried to use AI to generate essays, and then it was just giving you it was just more work. It was more work. I think you did a post about this a couple of years back, that it was more work for you to try to go through and correct and refine the AI thing. You said try to write it in the style of Noah Smith, and the voice was okay, but the substance was less okay, and so
the voice wasn't even okay. Honestly, it couldn't do me. Some writers it can do very well, but only if they have a very distinctive, over the top voice. But I know people who are working on.
Who can it do well?
Oh, Charlie Jane Anders, it does amazing. Who's one of my favorite writers in the world. She has this hilarious, like, sort of gonzo sci-fi humor. Try Hunter S. Thompson. It'll do Hunter S. Thompson like it won't do Hunter S. Thompson 100%, but it'll do him 80%, you know? So, but then how do I use AI as like a research assistant? It's not the only research thing that I use, but then, you know, I don't just say, give me the top 5 papers on this and then treat those as the top 5 papers, but I say like, you know, give me 100 papers on this and then I'll just scan those papers and it's like a better, you know, it's better than Google for that, although I may still use Google also because there's some orthogonality too you get. But then I'll use that. Proofreading, it has gotten amazing. Like it was terrible for a long time, and then recently I just pasted in there. I say proofread this for errors, and it is 95% accurate. It will occasionally give like hallucinate an error that doesn't exist, and it will occasionally not find an error that does exist. But it is not as good as I would be spending 15 minutes proofreading the thing, but it takes 2 minutes. So like, you know, and I don't have to do a thing. And so as proofreading, it's amazing. And as background reading, it's amazing. So for example, suppose I'm thinking of like, you know, I want to understand rare earth refining. Okay. Now I can go look it up on Wikipedia, but there's not necessarily an article on just walking you through how rare earths are refined on Wikipedia, and then Googling around for a good explainer that someone's written is very hit or miss. Someone may or may not have written it. I may not even find it, and if I do find it, it might have only 80% of what I want or 70% of what I want. So I tell AI, walk me through the steps of all of this, right? And then if AI, see, here's the thing, like if AI hallucinates any of that stuff, if it doesn't matter, because if it tells me one little thing a detail that I end up using, I will always look it up on my own. But if it tells me details that I don't end up using, it's like something could be wrong. So if I go ask a human expert, explain rare earth refining to me, they're going to get some things wrong. They're going to get 10% of it will be bullshit or just reflecting their own personal experience, but not the accurate part, or just like what they've encountered in the industry, or just like, I didn't know it, so I tried to sound smart. But like, you know, people do this too. And so you're not going to you just have to talk to a bunch of experts. Like AI is not a god. It is not an oracle. It's not an infallible oracle. You can't just push a button and know everything. Like it's not, we're used to that in narrow sense on Wikipedia. AI isn't just, you know, like give me an infallible thing on everything. Like it's not that good, but
that's amazing though, because Noah, from what I've read of you, you're very optimistic about AI, and I don't know if I'm pessimistic, but I'm burdened by these humanistic ideals. But we use AI in precisely the same way.
Well, I mean, I was going to say, we're not actually that far apart.
Yeah, exactly. We're not really.
Guys,
you have a very realistic idea of AI from what you've just said.
I mean,
Jenna wants to call on Jacob, so we have to call on Jacob for the sake of balance. And also, I'm like, with just like heads up, I might be with Jacob on this one, whatever. So.
Well, I mean, I don't know if they're apart at all.
Well, first of all, I mean, if Angie's curious, you know, why I'm being paid a lot of money to write for an AI company, though not for Anthropic. It's just because everything at AI companies is very high leverage. And, you know, we have researchers coming up with research, and I want to write the research into blog posts. Or, for example, work on training an AI to help with writing tasks. Then the thing for AI is when you're from the outside and you have doomers arguing with AI high people, it seems like everything is already supposed to be happening. And when you're actually inside an AI company, you realize how early we are. That all the things that AI can do, no one has actually trained it to do. And for example, writing is very, very hard. And writing is not something you get by default, because writing involves, for example, eliciting a lot of context about who your audience is and what the goal of the essay is. And almost everything you want AI to do well requires both a lot of technical problems to solve, like how to actually get the training done. And for example, how do I get a great data set of personalized writing tasks? I actually tried to do it on Twitter. I offered people on Twitter that I would just write personal things for them, like a letter to their mom or their dating app bio or whatever they want, to figure out what sort of hidden context, you know, people have when they ask for writing tasks, so that I can figure out, okay, how do we get somehow to create a data set of this to train AI, which might work or might not work. And so the people look at valuation, they say like, oh, like AI right now, which is kind of optimized, it's a next token predictor, kind of slammed into this weird text box format. that's not really how you work, right? Like you don't really communicate with anyone at work, but just like typing instructions into a text box and then walking away for 2 minutes and then like hoping it does something and then like getting mad, but you're not actually having a conversation. This is like just extremely early days. And like everyone's in the process of figuring out what is actually valuable for AI to be doing. People believe really crazy, weird things about AI. People, like, seriously talking about how much, how much water data centers use. Yeah. That's like a major talking point for a lot of people. And some governments are going to make like $1 trillion decisions with half of their voters believing that the problem with data centers is that, they drink too much water each day to stay hydrated. I think that's why there's like so much nonsense and so much that we need to figure out collectively. Yeah. That, whoever Anthropic ends up hiring is probably going to be underpaid if they're actually good at explaining AI to people who care about Anthropic.
Love it. Can I chime?
Sorry. Yeah.
Just chiming in on this. So, to your question, Anna, the biggest development for me personally this year was
I was going to go back to it. So we had AI,
which we will, but I'll connect them.
Wars.
I'll bridge them if I may. At least I'll try. So, that I had my book. I guess I got the book deal with Penguin, not this past summer, but the summer before. How has it already been that long? Yeah, but anyway,
I remember that.
But this is the year I drafted a book, right? Which still needs a lot of work. And to the discussion of AI and writing, the distinct experience that I've had using AI to help me with the book is holy crap, this is so ridiculous that I can so quickly just like get the story of Walt Disney's discovery, or like how he, I had watched a documentary about how he figured out the synchronization of like sound and animation for the first ever Mickey Mouse cartoon, but there was a bunch of information missing. And so I wanted to tell the story from a book, but I wanted to emphasize certain aspects of like, wait, so what does he mean by a metronome? And so I just got ChatGPT to like tell me the parts of the story that I wanted to know. And I wrote them into the, and asking ChatGPT for just all kinds of miscellaneous help along the kinds of lines we've been talking about. And so on one hand, I just felt like this is so cool. And on the other hand, I had this salient thing, like whenever I write my next book, it's going to be like 20,000 times easier because I can already envision all the ways that AI could help me that it can't yet. I get partly, like to Jacob's point, or, several of you talking about just like how early it is, where like at some point there will be an actually functional app that can read my whole book all at once and can actually tell me where I've already written on this and can just like, that I can just talk to in real time as I'm writing, and it can be a like competent writing assistant. And it just can't do that yet because of a bunch of miscellaneous limitations. It still hasn't, just because nobody's built that app yet, at least that I know of. If someone has, please send it my way ASAP. But just thinking about how, like, what an incredible horizon that we have ahead of us.
I mean, for founders, I'm sure that it has like some kind of an equivalent in consulting, but like the ability for me in the middle of a fundraise to go through 20 different business models and scenarios in under 1 second. It's like unbelievable speed. You can, and like my closest colleague is a mathematician. So it's not just that because I lack the mathematical skills, just like it's very time consuming to do this manually. But we both like this really like Noah, you said, like this is the machine for thinking, like it thinks with you. And of course, like you double check, like before it gets into utilization in any way, there are many, many different ways to like quadruple check everything, but that it helps me at least understand the proportions of different, and I use it, I'm obsessed with history, and one of my favorite like late night hobbies is to run alternative histories with GPT. And I love escalation theory. And so I'm like, okay, so how could we have avoided the First World War? And like assign a probability for everything. Who would have had to make a different decision? What is like the percentage probability for that? Why didn't they do that? Did they have the information? Like, it's hilarious. And it's like, to me, this is the opposite of historical determinism. And it's very convenient to look back at major historical fallouts and be like, well, all those factors. Yeah, and then you realize like, no, it was like very discrete people making discrete decisions, and those can be avoided. You don't have to.
I think,
yeah.
I mean, I think some of the pessimism from that people experience around AI stems from a couple of things. I mean, one, like some of the companies, they have kind of changed their, like Matt Iglesias had a good point about this recently, about how like some of these companies have changed their mission in important ways, where, for instance, OpenAI was first a nonprofit for the good of all humanity, and now they're a for-profit company that's like looking into porn, and like, so like for a lot of companies, like a lot of folks who are trying to kind of think through, well, how are these things going to be developed, towards what ends, and so on. Like the way that a lot of the folks who are developing these tools seem to be less interested in the initial social missions that they were saying, and maybe more interested in some other things that are maybe less obviously socially beneficial. And I also think like some of the letdown is that people who bought into the hype did assume that you could just use ChatGPT to do a lot of stuff. Like you could just code a bunch of stuff without knowing anything about coding. But it turns out if you want to use these things for coding, you actually have to know some stuff about coding so that you can understand the output. And if it goes wrong, you'll be able to evaluate where it goes wrong. So it can speed up the task if you already know something. But if you don't know stuff, then it's actually it's less useful than a lot of people thought. And so I think there's kind of a letdown in some circles about this that also generate, and same thing about knowledge. So like, as Noah said, if it gives you stuff, you have to check it. You do have to check, especially if you're going to use it in a piece. So there's a lot of journalists like who have these high profile incidents of journalists who just got some output from AI and slapped it into their thing, and then it turned out it was just completely false. Like there's this article in Slate where someone, I think it was Slate, where someone was like apparently asked when Joe Biden pardoned his son, they apparently asked a chatbot, hey, has any president ever done this before? And the chatbot apparently told them, yeah, George H.W. Bush pardoned one of his kids. So he wrote this arrogant ass article that was like, hey, shut up about, be quiet about Joe Biden. Daddy Bush did the same thing. And then this is completely false. This never happened. Nothing like this. Like, it was just not true that George H.W. Bush pardoned any of his sons for anything. It's just completely false.
This was the same with Wikipedia. Like Wikipedia had the same. And actually, I think this is a really good moment to talk a little bit about education in 2025, which was kind of one of the leading pieces of news. Multiple people here teach children as a living. Some of you are adult children, teachers, but they're like all of those institutions. And like that's all my, kind of abuses of Wikipedia experiences come from my student years, because I went to college in 2002, and that's when Wikipedia started as well. And the second year, the Hungarian student corpus discovered Wikipedia, and somehow everybody in my year had a verbatim the same essay titled Religion in Hamlet, until one genius actually forgot the URL at the bottom of the account, and that's how they found out. So we've kind of been there before. But I know that those of you who are professors here and who work with kids, like you see it a little bit differently. Like it is like Wikipedia in some sense, but not fully. How was 2025 for students?
I mean, I kind of would want to, if it's possible, to wrap this question of education back with the kind of frame, because it's I think if AI and the kind of institutional questions of knowledge production and expertise and how we're going to build pipelines of experts for the future are like all up for grabs at once, it lets us go back and think about what the fundamental kind of dialogic model is, right? So it's like, if we imagine that the best way you can get smart is either because you could magically find access to all the known things at once, or you could have the right kind of tutor that talks to you in dialogue. And then we think of the computer as some extension of those processes, as like a knowledge instrument. That's a really constrained model, given how radically plastic a medium computing actually is, And so there's like another line one could think with that's about the role of education as a kind of civic project, and the role of computing as well as part of a kind of world building project. And then maybe we could get away from the tools we have and where we learn from as like individual dialogue, and make it much more about something like can you learn from a city, right? Can you learn from a sociality? Can you learn from being like embedded in things you half understand and don't totally understand? And sometimes it's nonsense and that's okay. And like, how do you make the kinds of people who can make sense of each other given that kind of uncertainty? Right. Because I think Jacob's right. Like we're in this world, we're not going to go back. Right. And how do they figure out how to coordinate enough with one another to get the kinds of projects they care about done, whether it's like making sure we do good water use or making sure that the information is good or making sure people get what they need to vote. But that's such a radically different frame than we've been using for a long time to think about computing, that I'm kind of hoping that the crisis allows us to divest from the kind of bounded individual brain in intellect and to become like radically more porous and open in our uncertainties, because that feels more like what it's like to be in any given polis, actually. And maybe I'm biased living in New York, but that's what I would want for our children, right? Is that they can sit on a block and go, you know what, there's 5 million things happening and some don't make sense. Now what? What do we do?
My optimistic take here is that just listening to everyone reflect and explain how they use AI is making me more optimistic about the human ability to use this tool in a wise way. So that's my optimistic, hopeful note on that note.
I like that, Santiago, because I said pessimism, but it's more pessimism about how people use it and misinterpret it than the thing itself, because people aren't. I mean, Noah maybe, and all of us on the call may be understanding, okay, you have to double check this. It hallucinates. What I guess writers of fiction are seeing is someone at the Chicago Sun-Times getting paid to write a listicle, right? And these listicles are like the bread and butter of a lot of writers who don't have second jobs as management consultants. And then the Chicago Sun-Times publishes a list of just completely fabricated books.
Well,
and
that
it did
tells you a lot
this.
about who reads those lists of books, right? I think. Oh, but I think what Santiago said kind of points to what's happening, which is, again, ChatGPT came out 3 years ago. And again, the format of writing instruction to a textbook is really weird. People haven't done this before. And it's not just that the 3 years isn't a lot of time for AI companies to train AIs, to empower journalists, to empower teachers, to empower therapists, right? Like each one of those is its own difficult challenge. 3 years isn't a ton of time for people to learn how to actually use them well. So like when I was writing my Substack for a year, and it took me like many, many months to figure out what AI is good at. And I realized, okay, I arrived at some workflow where I would throw like 20 ideas. It would kind of help me pick out which 6 of them make sense together, in a single post, that they're kind of connected. I would ask it for more examples. It would give me a lot of garbage, but 20% of it would inspire something. And I'm like, all right, it's like, I use it a little bit for brainstorming and a little bit for just like inspiring me and a little bit, if I wanted to simulate a reader that I'm not very familiar with, and then like check for typos. And again, like I try, like I set myself a mission of like learning how to write better with AI. Yeah. And after 8 months of practice, I feel like I got 10% of the value.
Although I do think note that 3 years, that's nothing. Like there's nothing that a human collective can really learn viscerally in 3 years.
One thing that does trouble me, though, to return to Santiago's original question about not having to work anymore, is there's this great book that Orwell wrote like a century ago called The Road to Wigan Pier. And one of the things he talks about there is like one of the big problems with socialism is like socialists have long had this vision of what today we call like fully automated luxury communism or something, where people don't work and they just chill and their basic needs are cared for and they can do whatever they want. And like Marx had the idea for a bit that like if people were freed of the constraints of work, then they would go fishing in the afternoon and they would go they would read poetry and write books and socialize with friends. We'd fill all of our time with all of these great, meaningful, enriching things, and we'd have these rich social bonds and this great. What we can see now actually is Derek Thompson has some good work on this. There's a whole bunch of researchers who also do work on this. Is that Americans have more and more free time, and we're possibly slated to have a lot more, depending on how a lot of these AI tools go. But what we're mostly doing with that is streaming alone. We're just sitting alone in our houses, streaming especially short form video content for hours on end in ways that doesn't bring happiness and fulfillment. And there is this problem that cognitive and behavioral scientists and other social scientists have been studying for a while, where it's really possible to kind of to give people too much of what it seems like what they want in ways that actually make them unhappy. So negativity in the news, for instance, if you look at any particular article, if it has a negative headline and if it has negative text, it tends to perform better. Yeah. And so so both platforms and media outlets favor sensationalist negative stuff. But if all that people get is negative content, they actually tune out from the news. So people would actually get more, these platforms would actually do better if they actually had more sub-optimized content. They would actually get more readership and engagement overall. It's over-optimized. And you can see this kind of a thing happening a lot. Like, if you ask people, would you like to, social scientists have done things like this, where they ask people like, would you like to do a job where we're going to give you $500 and you can either spend that time just standing around not doing anything and we'll just give you $500, or you could do some onerous task and we'll give you $500. Now, when you give people this option, people usually assume that they would much rather just get the $500 and stand around for 2 hours. But it turns out that people actually much prefer in practice. So if you let them choose, they'll choose to just stand around. Yeah. But when you force people into one category or another and then look at their experiences after, they actually tend to find it much more fulfilling to be doing something, to have some kind of purpose, to have some kind of meaning, to have some kind of
friction,
way that they're, this kind of friction and things like this is actually important. And so to the extent that we're making things too like really smooth and frictionless and easy and seamless and whatever, like there's a one thing that I do worry about is that we do seem to have this kind of growing crisis of meaning and purpose and kind of especially that's maybe not as pronounced among people like us who, if I get more free time, I actually will use it I don't even have TikTok. Like I'll use it to do other, but like, but there are huge swaths of other people who, when we remove this friction from their lives and we over-optimize in this way, what they're going to do at that time is just sitting alone, streaming. And it's not me yucking their yum and thinking I know better than them what makes them happy. When you actually look at their own evaluations of their lives, their own evaluations of their lives are going down. They are, in fact, growing less happy.
I want to go back to what Jacob said, because I think knowing that this is just a couple of years is really, really important. I also have this instinct. I think this is related to why negative news tends to fare better. When there's a small negative trend at the beginning of something, it's easy to be fatalistic and be like, oh my God, the apocalypse has started. It's going to be like this forever. Yesterday I had a conversation with an tech and emotion researcher, professor who has 3 daughters between, I think, ages 17 and 24. And I asked her about the social media use, all these like trends that we keep hearing about. And she said, like, none of my 3 kids are really on social media. Like that generation, like the millennials were messed up, the older Gen Z messed up because for them it was new, plus the pandemic. But the younger kids, they are not even on Instagram. For them, Instagram is like old people with plastic surgery doing weird shit for money.
Yes.
They are
Twitter's dying, Instagram's dying.
Phone. They are so suspicious. Social media is for old people. The worst thing you can say on a playground about the other kid, apparently, is that he has brain rot. Like, that's the worst social insult for teens and tweens. It means it's related to like how, I don't know, certain types of food, when it was new, there was like a super size me generation that had no immunity or resistance. I'm way more worried about what's next. I think the kids will actually get over social media because it will be socially penalized to have brain rot. And they will look at other ways to signal intelligence, hotness, whatever they want to signal in their communities. but something will come after that. It's not like tech will be like, well, we lost, let's leave the kids alone.
I mean, whatever's high status, Anna, you're right. Like the status can kill social media outright. If social media becomes uncool and, a status penalty, it's dead. But something else will come to always, we are constantly searching for ways to differentiate.
It's not going to help the people who are already like kind of neurologically affected by this, the same way as people whose like blood sugar was messed up in the 80s by some new trend in fast food consumption will deal with the health consequences all their lives. But I was very, very surprised. Actually, this might be a really good segue just so that we can spend a little time on culture. I would love to hear, your favorite movies, books this year and why. I feel like there were some very emblematic things happening in culture this year that could only have happened this year. Like it's not like there is life and society and then there is culture on the other end. It's like culture was a kind of spokesperson, as always, for what was going on in the non-artistic part of the world. Sorry, can I start with you because you're one of the resident artists here and you're like, you literally run a platform about this. So I feel like anybody has the finger on this pulse. You must have seen some crazy stuff in 2025. Were there trends, works, artists that really surprised you?
I mean, you're putting me on the spot here. I don't know. I have to think about it more. I'm personally very interested in psychedelics. I had my first journey in 2025, and I'm deep into Joe Dispenza. So I'm just reading. I just finished reading Becoming Supernatural. So I'm deep down that rabbit hole personally. I also watched a lot of comedy this year. I watched John Mulaney live, which was amazing. I watched Alex Edelman live, which was amazing. I don't know. I'm trying to keep it light. I'm tired of just reading like doomer stuff. So I'm trying to stay very distant from anyone that says the world is ending personally. But I'll think about it more as I hear.
I love it. I'm going to see Alexis Gay on Monday. She will be performing in Brooklyn.
Amazing. I'm very interested in what other people's answers to this.
Yeah, go for it. You can also say books or movies you hated, because I want to hear that as well. We are interested in why that happened.
Look, my favorite, I don't think there are really good books explaining what's happening right now. I really like Venkatesh's Rao framing of the Great Weirding, which he traces to, the unfortunate death of Harambe. And since then, we're basically in the weird timeline. And like, I was just scrolling through my Audible library, and I read like old books about Lacan, really strange novels, like there's no anti-memetics division. And I feel like just, I don't know, last few years, especially since COVID, and like just lean into weirdness, read weird stuff. Don't read anything that says like, the only book that actually explains what's going on that isn't weird is Martin Gurri's Revolt of the Public. That kind of explains why, expert authorities that we used to trust in can deal with, once they lose a little bit of credibility, they just go into a spiral of pretending that they didn't until they lose all of it. But other than that, which is really like, I don't know, it's a book that seems like it was written 100 years from now, and he's a time traveler. But everything else, I just read weird stuff.
Well, I mean, I'm going to second the weird. I've been really into, for the past couple of years, bizarre premise novels. The best bizarre premise novel I read this year is called Sky Daddy. Has anyone else read it? It is a retelling of Moby Dick about a woman who is sexually obsessed with airplanes. And it is so funny, so well done on the comedic,
Jacob is already thinking about hopeful. The data. Like I've seen that in the data. Yeah, that exists.
Yeah, and what's really funny is it's like almost it's a counterpoint to a lot of the sad Brooklyn lady novels, which I personally like. No, if you enjoy the sad Brooklyn lady genre, go forth and enjoy it, but it is not my thing. And what's so great about Sky Daddy is like this woman lives like above, a family's, in a tiny illegal apartment. And, she works for one of these, a content moderator at one of the big, San Francisco big tech type place, and she's so relentlessly positive about it, like delusionally positive about her, late capitalist life, that there's a million other books just, getting. It is the ultimate hope axis book, Anna. I think this needs to be one of your hope axis.
Sexually attracted
picks.
to airplanes. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's completely reasonable stance.
It's very pro progress.
Literally,
Blake would be
progress
pleased.
studies.
Yeah.
I mean, yes and no. Like, specifically, what she thinks is that, like, she wants to consummate her relationship with an airplane via a crash. So, like, that's her idea of the ultimate sexual. Anyway, it's just, you got to read it. It's weird. It's very well done.
Okay.
I'm like super obsessed with this. Like, I want everyone to read it, but I don't know how to make it's. So, like, Michel de Certeau wrote this double volume set called The Mystic Fable about the Counter-Reformation period, where you have like all of these people wandering around, like, sort of not it's like an institutional crisis, and so you have all these people who are like doing mystical things and like puncturing their flesh, and like, what is it even to speak a holy language, like all of this mess, then reconsolidating.
I already bought this book. This is not the first time Erica brings up this book.
It's like, if I could get the AI world to read this, it's like he's got the topic down. Like, what is a topic? What does it mean to have meaning? Like, it's like, how do we make that brokered is just the passion project, but it's just so good. I don't even know. I have a crush on the books, so I'll put it there.
For my part, I both loved the Wicked movies, which I went to see with my 5-year-old, and so it was sort of overdetermined that I would love them and love the experience of watching them with her, who like is as much of an esthetometer as I am. That's my husband's like nickname for me, the esthetometer, because you can just kind of look at my face and know what you're supposed to be feeling at any given point. Apparently,
your husband's nickname for you is the esthetometer. He made up an entire word just to be your nickname.
He sure did. I don't know if he puts
of that relationship.
I mean, actually, it's
that's love.
I don't know how to respond, but thank you. He also wrote about it, awkwardly enough, on my Substack, and garnered more likes for his post on my Substack, singing my praises in his
I love it.
sort of sardonic way than I have earned for any of my posts on my Substack.
You guys have to read the post that Matt Bateman wrote about Gena Gorlin's Substack. It's like so meta, and it's one of the best things I've ever read on marriage.
Yeah. So I talk about how happy marriages happy marriages are kind of an anti-meme, where people who are in them don't really talk about them. And so it's a bit hard to spot, and people don't know.
So we do.
Yeah, and I realized
we're weird like that.
People
I think that's why people like our posts sometimes.
Yeah, I was going to say like Matt and Gena. I was like, oh, it's like a huge public service. Like, being a good marriage in public on Twitter is incredibly rare and valuable.
I mean, somehow that's how you fight the negative news contagion. Is that if something good is happening in your life, like, tell people about it, because you're adding to the conversation and you're changing the kind of consistency, the proportions of things. And I feel like in that sense, we all have a responsibility. Like, the same for like happy times in startups, where you're like neither raising, I don't know how much money, nor is it going terribly where you're whining, just like the happy quotidian. Because in the information environment, we always look at just the extremes. And so people assume that there's no middle ground, whereas most of our lives unfold in the middle ground. It's kind of like okay. And I think okay is very, very powerful when okay is missing from the narrative.
I feel like the same is true for kids. All you see online is how horrible and difficult life with kids is. And I have 3 kids, and they just make my life infinitely richer. And I don't write about that enough. And I do think, well, isn't rage baiting the word of the year of 2025?
Rage bait.
It's so shocking. And they showed the illustration that looks like an IUD. And I didn't understand,
it was 6'7".
why is there an IUD photo with a rage bait? What happened?
Something went very wrong. Need to just replace them all with bunnies.
Important for 2025. Rage bait is the word of the year, and the illustration looks like the bait looks like an IUD. I don't know what to say.
Those are the Sky Daddies.
I would upload the transcript into AI and ask for it to create an illustration, like a graphic for this episode, and just like we'll let you guys know what it came up with.
It's amazing. So sorry, can I actually just circle back and just complete the
assignment
on? So my being an aesthetometer is relevant because I can't but love the cinematic recreation of one of my favorite musicals of all time, which is Wicked. And on the flip side, every time I go to the movie theater, I notice the complete and utter dearth of a single original storyline in any of the movies being previewed. And when was the last time a movie came out that wasn't either a remake or a sequel or another take on a Marvel superhero or like another, a recombination of these two multiverses? Like, when's the last time we actually got a new story? And this also to me connects to my excitement about AI, because I am just breathlessly awaiting the day when the, like AI video gen technology gets good enough that actually just all the writers who I assume are out there writing amazing scripts that Hollywood refuses to produce, like they can all just go make their movies and we can watch them. I really want that.
I'm really hoping that AI injects some creativity into the cultural sphere because we're stagnating so badly in so many ways. Now, you know what? It's not entirely because there are some formats that have exploded in creativity, right? Like comics, like web comics, American graphic novels have actually exploded in creativity, and short form video, obviously. And I think that technology drives a lot of this. Short form video wasn't really possible, and web comics were expensive and a lot harder to create, a lot more expensive. The distribution was harder. Graphic novels, you can draw them on an iPad now. You couldn't before. You had to draw them in ink. So I think that the technology drives a lot of these things. Whereas if you look at old formats that are pretty constraining, like alternative rock, anyone old enough to remember alternative rock in the 90s?
I miss it so much.
And you basically alternative rock was just like a dude with a guitar going like do 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 do, and you ran out of riffs. In a few years.
It's that they don't use heroin anymore. Okay, music is always downstream to what drugs people are using, and I think people.
Wait, Anna.
Yeah,
they do. They do.
Yeah, but not that kind. It's a different kind. Yeah.
It's not. No one mentioned distribution though, and I think we have to talk about this because I do not think that the crisis is in creativity. Creativity is everywhere and exploding. The challenge is in distribution and the consolidation of both platforms and capital into channels and venues that make plurality, a plurality of works harder to break out. Like publishing, Hollywood, these are all winner take all economies, and frankly, the lowest common denominator often wins. I'm trying to remember, I don't read these people, but Colleen Hoover, that's her name, right? Colleen Hoover is selling a cajillion books right now, you guys. The last time I think Pynchon squeaked onto the New York Times bestseller list, but it's just a lot of not great stuff. But I think this is to some extent we have to be okay with it because the Grishams, the Colleen Hoovers, they serve a role as long as these distributors and and patrons of various stripes are not so greedy and craven as not to reinvest some portion of those ginormous bestseller winner take all returns into a, thriving pluralistic culture. And for a long time that happened, and that is what is happening less. There are wonderful books that have come out, but you just don't see them. I mean, the fact that a book like Sky Daddy, or, I don't know if anybody else has read The 10-Year Affair. I know not everybody agrees on things. I thought that was a wonderful book. There's so many great new books that are coming out. Maybe film may be harder because you need so much more capital to get behind it and do it. And AI maybe gives a path there to that lowers the barriers to entry. But I think this is predominantly a distribution, not a creativity problem.
Well, one of the issues too that interferes with some of the newer stuff gaining traction is just that the back catalogs are more easily available too, and so like people are going through, and so like Taylor Swift's old albums are still continuing to sell really well, and the same thing for, if you're on Netflix, you can discover a lot of movies that came out 10, 20 years ago that you never watched that you can watch now instead of watching a new movie. It's like very easy because the older catalogs are so available too. In fact, I'm writing a new book right now, and it's kind of an architecturally puzzling book because it was originally written as the second half of the book that just came out, but now it has to stand on its own, but it also can't reference a lot of the material from the first book. It can't be a repeat of that. So I can't assume anyone's read the first book. I also can't repeat the first book.
What happened?
I need to...
Did you misread your contract?
Well, I just wrote... So when I wrote this one, what I initially wanted to do was... I'm a big fan of symmetrical analysis. So I wanted to spend like half the book looking at knowledge economy professionals and our institutions and our communities and the ways we leverage social justice discourse and so on. And the back half, I wanted to turn the analytic lens the other way to people who are increasingly, the elites and ordinary people who are increasingly defining themselves against us and kind of aligning with the political party that's the opposite of the one that we are. And so I wanted to do a symmetrical analysis of those folks. So I wrote the book that way, but it was just too damn long. So we cut it in half. Originally, I tried to argue with Princeton. I was like, Richard Florida, Rise of the Creative Class. It's a big tome, let's do that. And they were like, you're not Richard Florida. So I could...
you have to be careful in America because if your nonfiction is too long, Lin-Manuel Miranda will turn it into a musical.
This is what I'm angling for. Well, anyway, so...
Really, there's like a certain like...
And you can die happy.
Yeah, I want to do...
what would be the problem?
Yeah. I mean,
I'm going to make sure baby has never been woke.
Just like you have to be aware that this is where this is going.
But so amazing.
So because to get around this architectural problem, because this is the main thing that's tripping me up, most of the research is already done, a lot of the content is... So what I've been doing is I've been reading a lot of detective novels that I haven't, so I've been catching up on, but like older ones.
I love them so much. That's my guilty pleasure. Like the more murdered, the happier I am.
So there's a lot of them that I've wanted to read for a long time, but I just never got around to. So like some Umberto Eco books, Foucault's Pendulum, The Name of the Rose. I've been Bolaño's 2666. Yeah, so I've just been catching up on. So like there's this kind of whole back catalog of books that are also really great that I've never read.
It's amazing, and he's such a late bloomer. And like in our culture, everything is like figure out who you are at like age 13.7 and then just make a career. And Umberto Eco was a completely different person. And in his 50s, he had a midlife crisis. And he was like, either I go to the beach with a dancer and cheat on my wife, or I start writing books. And the wife was like, fuck no, you're not going to the beach. And so he was like, okay, I guess I'm going to write books now. And that's how Name of the Rose happened. Thank you, Renate. This is how you create a genius. And I love that. Always ask your wife what you should do.
My wife is the only reason I do I tell people this all the time. Like before if I was not married and didn't have kids, I would be sitting in a studio apartment eating like white rice every day. Like I do not care. Like, I don't have a lot of actually independent ambition. It was when I met my wife, I was just that she attached herself to what was a very rickety wagon for me at the time. It kind of lit a fire. Like I had to get my stuff together because I had a wife, and then especially when she got pregnant, I had kids to support. Like So I got like 4 degrees in 5 years after I got married, and I went from community college to Columbia University, and now I'm like, it was the
There's
only
a reason why the best paid people in America are the green men.
Yeah, it was like I wouldn't be doing any of this if I didn't have a family. There's no way.
Maybe that's the best place to end the conversation as well, because whatever we talk about, culture, politics, science, engineering, it always kind of comes back to these really personal things. Like, try to have a good life. Like, be healthy, eat carrots, have somebody who loves you.
Or give them to your bunny.
Go outside, because whatever happens, like whatever else we might come up with to try to like make the world better, none of it matters if you don't have that kind of nest figured out. Maybe that's my biggest hope. And this is what I always come back to, that, you know, except for those extremely unfortunate people for whom politics becomes very personal, because, for instance, their spouse is taken away in handcuffs from a green card interview for some reason, or their baby is taken from them. But for everybody else, it doesn't have to get that personal. And there's something extremely resilient in cultivating a personal journey that has nothing to do with the outside world, whether that's writing novels, diving into psychedelics, going to write a book about Japanese for some reason, which is what Noah did. All of these things work, and we will do this again next year. So take notes all year, okay, for this. Start January fast, and we will come back to it. It's a privilege that you are here and that you came on my podcast, and spread the word of hope, because it's really rare. And people get their hope from each other. It's not really a self-generated thing. So if you wake up and you're a little bit hopeful, like 1%, just share it. It's not going to go down for you. It's not like, you know, a finite resource. But if you have a little bit, and if other people are giving you hope, like, receive it because you also need it. I think that's this way we can kind of like collectively raise each other's hope. And that makes us happier and more productive. And there's an enormous benefit for other people and rabbits. And our little friend, the rabbit. I don't want to be like, you know, too discriminative against non-human animals.
No. We're all in this together, you know. And I think that the longer, like, eventually we will understand that we're all in it together. Even the AIs, you know, they're part of our family now.
For better or worse. Go and hug your AIs, guys. I love you. Thank you so much for being here. This has been amazing. And I will just like continue doing this. Like, apparently this format works, you know. Who knew? Take care.